actually asking myself. So at the end of the 6 months, I was actually asking myself, like, what next now? Where do I go from here? But the good thing is, even before I rounded up the 6 months course, a friend of mine just sent me a link that, this radio station where I work now, they're hiring. And that was how I submitted my voice note, my voice recording and my CV. They called me up for interview. I came, dropped my voice recording. They interviewed me, and that was how I got the job I'm doing now. And so far, it's been beautiful. It's been, it's not been an easy journey, because truth is that for every career path, comes hitches, some difficulties, and the rest of them. But the most important thing is, if you know and you're convinced that you're on the right path, you know that this is actually what you want to do. You find that no matter what obstacle keeps coming, because you're convinced, because it's not someone that forced you into it, you find a way to just keep pushing, to keep moving. And that's how I got here today. It's not been easy, because truth is, there are so many things coming from a female perspective. I could tell you that this sports industry is a male-dominated one, and I don't want to sit here and tell you that, I have not enjoyed some certain privileges. I have. But one thing is, no matter the privileges it is to be enjoyed, make sure that you actually know the job. The most important thing is knowing the job you're doing, being good at what you do, so that even when people think that some certain things fell on your lap, or that you got some certain things, they can't argue that you don't deserve it. They would know that even at the end of the day, it's merit, because you are good at what you do. Because in certain industries, people will always say, oh, it's because she's this, or it's because he's that. It's okay if people feel that way. But one thing that you should do for yourself is to make sure that you're good at what you do, so that when it boils down to, was it actually merited? The answer would be yes, it's merited, because this person is good in this job and good at what they do. So that's the most important thing in this industry. So I'm just going to tell you about some experiences I've had. When you're in this broadcast industry, it's important to mix with other journalists, mix with other broadcasters, make friends, because truth is that you can't know everything that is happening at the same time. It's the people you like, network, build your network, because it's someone that will actually tell you, oh, this is happening here, this is happening there, there's a press conference happening there, there's this happening there. There's no way you can know everything. So you have to just make sure you network with the right people that are willing to also help you grow in your career, people that are also willing to, show you opportunities when they come. Because truth is, there are people that just want to grasp opportunities all for themselves. They are not willing to let any other person in. But that's not even the right attitude to have, because the sky is big enough for everybody to fly. You have to carve a niche for your own self. So in whatever you do, make sure you're moving with the right people that are willing to point you to the right path, people that are willing to show you opportunities when it comes, people that are selfless and want to, see you grow, see you flourish, and see you prosper. Make sure that those are the people that you are always with, people that you are always rolling with at the end of the day when it comes to broadcasting and journalism. And another thing, go out more. Make sure you're always going out. At some point, people will be like, he's always everywhere, she's always everywhere. But you need that. You need, like, to be a successful journalist, you need to be where it is happening and get the latest, because that's actually what is going to distinguish you from every other person. Bringing it in your own perspective, not going online to see news that maybe Vanguard or Punch has published, and then you just say it word for word. What's the difference? So always going out to get the news, putting it in your own way, your own perspective, is actually what distinguishes you as a broadcaster, whether in sports or any other aspect of broadcasting and journalism. Of course, there are different, sportscasting, news, what are they? Food, you can be a food journalist, you can be like a journalist in different things. Like you could be anything. Like journalism is just too broad. You could practice any form of journalism. Investigative journalism is actually something I also love to do. You know, those people that get into as in those people that actually get down to it to bring you the things you never even knew. That I love investigative journalists because they do a whole lot. It's actually a very interesting aspect of journalism. So I'm going to pause here for a while and ask if anybody has any question or anything they did like to say before I carry on with what I'm saying. Let me be sure that you all are following.
Okay, please, if you have any questions, please raise your hand so I can give you the audience.
Does anyone have a question or something they did like to say before I continue?
Okay, Mr. Itari, thank God. Please ask your question.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good afternoon.
Okay, good afternoon. So, what has been your major challenge coming in as a female into sports journalism?
Okay, I think one of my major challenges has just been being female alone is a challenge. It might sound unbelievable, but people think, oh, you're supposed to have it easy. But being female is a challenge, and let me explain it to you. Because first of all, when people see me, and I introduce myself, oh, I'm Chiamaka Okoli, and I'm a sports broadcaster, there's this look they give me, like that look of, like, shouldn't you be a model somewhere? Or shouldn't you be like an entertainment person? Or, they look at you with this disdain of, are you sure you know sports? So I'll give you an example on social media. The way social media is these days on Twitter. I think there was something during the female World Cup, the last female World Cup. I was actually, having a banter with someone, and some guy actually replied me. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you. Please carry
on. Okay. I was saying that during I'll just give you an example. So during the female World Cup, the last female World Cup, I was on Twitter. I was having a banter with someone. And one guy actually tweeted at me and said, oh, all these women that just recently started watching football, what do you know? Oh, please go back to the kitchen. That kind of remark. And I felt bad. And, then people now started to tell him, oh, you don't even know what you're saying. She's a sports journalist, this, that. And then another incident was when we were talking about this. Okay, there's this popular topic, if you follow sports, about, people actually saying that, oh, Messi only scores against lesser teams. That was when he was in Barcelona. They were like, oh, he scores against lesser teams. And I was actually trying to point out to the person that the team that Messi has enjoyed more scoring record against is Atletico Madrid. And Atletico Madrid are one of the tough teams in Spain, because after Real Madrid, Barcelona, then you see Atletico Madrid. I'm like, Messi has even found joy scoring more against Atletico than any team. So how do you say he enjoys scoring against only lesser teams? And, we are just having the back and forth. And the guy was like, oh, you don't even know what you're talking about, this, that. And then I just told him, would you like to come to this? Should I invite you to my sports show? Would you like me to invite you to my sports show on radio so that we can talk more about this? I think that was the time he actually now went to my bio to see that, oh, she's actually a sports journalist. And then he goes, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even know you were a sports journalist. I apologize. So those are the things. People see you first. They see female, fine girl before they actually see your career. So most of them do not even take you seriously. Most of them do not think you know what you're doing because you're female, or because they say, oh, she's fine, this, that. So she basically doesn't know what she's saying. So most times I have to prove myself before people actually see me. I don't know if that's making sense to you. So sometimes it takes a lot of maybe people referring them to, oh, she's actually a sponsor, or maybe them listening to my sports show or something before they can actually say, oh, okay, she actually does know what she's doing. And these days I don't even mind, because everybody cannot be a believer. So those are one of the things, that actually I have tough things I've experienced as a female broadcaster, because people see you and don't believe you know what you're doing because you're female, because they believe that a female has no place in this posting. It should be a male industry. So sometimes a female has to work twice as hard to prove that she's actually good as a sports journalist, because people don't believe that this is your niche, that this is what you should be doing in the first place. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did, ma. I just want to add a follow-up to my question.
You just want to?
I said I want to add a follow-up question.
Okay, all right.
I want to ask. Hello.
I can hear you. Go on.
Okay. What are the possible traits that one can adjust, a distinguishing trait that one can have for you to be a sports journalist? Just
Okay.
one trait, yes, an important trait.
Okay, distinguishing traits for you to be a sports journalist,
Yes,
or just
yes.
a journalist in general?
Okay, let me say journalist in general.
Okay. Some of the distinguishing traits you could have, to be a successful journalist is, one, as in you must be a good communicator. Like, you can be able to communicate. You must have that, power. There are people, I don't know if you've experienced this, there are people that walk into a room, and when they open their mouth, you are captivated. You are like, they get your attention for the whole period that they are speaking. You do not want to look elsewhere. You don't want to listen to any other thing but them. Those are good communicators. Those are good orators. So they speak. They have, like, there's this thing about their tone, their voice. They have this energetic, magnetic. They are good orators. They are good communicators. So when they talk, you want to listen. You want to pay attention. So if you want to be a good journalist, you must have that, because that is one way to, draw attention to yourself, and that is what you need as a journalist. Two, in as much as you're going to be a good communicator, you're also going to be a good listener. As a journalist, you must listen. And you're not just listening you are listening to understand. You're listening to understand, and because before you can actually communicate, you must have listened. You understand what you're saying, then you're able to translate it back to people. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So you must be a good communicator, you must be a good listener. And then another thing is that you must be able to tell a story, like a very good story. It doesn't matter the industry where you're telling the story from, whether sports, food, politics, health. You must be able to tell a good story, like whether you're doing it in writing or you're doing it as a documentary or whatever. Like, put a story together. It's going to be, it has to be, it has to correlate. It has to, have beginning, middle, and end. It has to make sense, because there are some documentaries and stories you finish and you finish watching or you finish reading, and you just give a thumbs up to whoever put it together, because it was well, when you say something is well put together, you must be good at putting stories and things together, that when people read it, there's no doubt, they totally understand what you're saying, because that article is well put together. So those are like the basic things for a journalist.
Okay, ma.
All right.
I don't
Thank
know
you.
if my class rep will permit me to continue.
Oh, you have more questions?
Yes, just one in
Oh,
addition.
okay, it's fine. Go on.
Okay. When you said about traits of a good journalist, you made mention of be a good communicator. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So when you mean good communicator, is it like the person must know how to talk like that? Okay, like you have these persons that they know how to talk. You can give them hours they talk without stopping. So is that what you really meant about that?
Okay, when I say communication, yeah, basically communication means speaking and speaking clearly so that whoever it is you're trying to relate with can understand what you're saying, right?
Yes, yes.
That is basically what communication is in simple English. Trying to relate something to someone, trying to express something to someone so that the person will understand what you're trying to relate to them. So that's basically communication. So when I say you must be a good communicator, I mean that as a broadcaster, as a journalist, you must be able to communicate well in terms that you shouldn't be trying to communicate and pass a message and people are like, what is he trying to say? What does it like? You should be clearly your communication to be has to be very clear. So you being a good communicator means you can actually pass your message across to people clearly and they understand clearly what you're trying to say. So I also tell you this on radio, especially in Lagos, there's always this thing about hiring OAPs that speak through their nose. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Lagos Talks. Good afternoon. I don't know if you've experienced such before. So to me, your accent is not the people mistake accent for communication, but that's not it. It's good to have a very good accent. Some people have British accents, they have US accents. There are so many accents. Like if you're from Algeria, of course, when you're speaking, people expect to hear that accent. If you're from Ghana, we know that Ghanaians have their own accents. Like if they want to say brother, they say pastor. Like they want to say pastor, they say pastor. That is their accent. And you cannot laugh. Like if a Ghanaian is trying to speak now, I cannot be laughing. The only people that laugh at people's accents is people that do not understand. I cannot be laughing at someone's accent because that is their mother tongue. And that is not something to be ashamed of. That is not something to be ashamed about. Your dialect, your mother tongue is nothing to be ashamed about because journalism can be done in any dialect. You can choose Swahili, you can choose Yoruba, you can choose Igbo. The most important thing is that you are connecting. And the most important thing is audience. The most important thing is the audience you're trying to relay your message to. The most important thing is that the audience you're trying to relate to, the audience you're trying to pass your message across, understand what you're saying. So that's what I want you to take away from this teaching. Your audience are very important when it comes to communication. And so long as your audience understand you and the message you're trying to pass across, that is the most important thing. So if you're speaking to Igbo people, you have to make sure you speak Igbo, like especially you speak Central Igbo. Because I know that in Igbo, they have Central Igbo, they have the different one. You have to speak a Central Igbo that every other person understands. And if you're working on where they have, a pidgin, that's why in broadcasting and journalism, you need to know your audience. Who are your audience? That's a very important thing. Who are your audience? Are your audience Yorubas? Are they Igbos? Are they French? What language can you communicate in that all of them would understand? There are some times that you find out that Pidgin English is the easiest that everybody can understand. Then you communicate in Pidgin English. So when I say communication, is not necessarily speaking through your nose or having British accent. Or when I say communication, communication is speaking clearly so that people you're talking to can basically understand what you're saying. That's communication. Whether you're communicating in Igbo or Yoruba or Hausa or Pidgin English or French, so long as your audience can hear you clearly and understand clearly what you're saying, then you are communicating. That is what I mean by communication. Do you understand? Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
we we understand it.
Okay, so that's what I mean when I say communication is very, very important. So never you think that maybe because you've not been to the UK or you don't speak some kind of English through your nose, no, that doesn't work. Like you need to be on radio or TV. You need to speak, and people need to catch what you're saying clearly. Like you need to pronounce words. And then one thing is, like I said, know your audience. And if you're given a script to communicate, to read, or to broadcast, you need to go through that script. If you see names, like if you see a Yoruba name or Hausa name or Igbo name or French name, you need to go back to the computer or look for someone who is French or who is Igbo and say, please, could you pronounce this name for me? Because it's actually a crime in journalism to mention someone's name wrongly or mention something wrongly. So if you cannot pronounce something, like if it's an Igbo name or Yoruba name or something, just go to someone and say, please, you're Hausa, could you tell me how this thing is being pronounced? That's why you're a professional. So that when you get on air or TV or anywhere, you pronounce that name the way it's supposed to be pronounced. Because you just calling the name the way you feel it should be called means you did not do your homework. So that's another thing about communication. You need to always read your script. Anything you don't understand or you can't pronounce, go back to your computer or to someone who can pronounce it and have them help you. Rehab that pronunciation as many times as possible, so that when you go on air and pronounce it, people will not even know that maybe you are not from that town or something because you've actually done your homework. That's what a good broadcaster does. So any other question?
Yes, Ma, I have a question.
Okay.
How can a rookie journalist overcome the fear of public speaking?
Okay, that's another thing. And I don't know if I tell you I'm shy, you might not believe me. I've done this job for almost a decade, but I still can't look people in the eye. That is the truth. I'm a very shy person. I don't like crowd. I work on radio, and you can imagine I always have to go for events and the rest of them. So, but the thing is, being a professional means you know when to draw the line. You know when this is work, and you know when this is my personal life. So when we're talking about my personal life, I don't like crowd. I can't look people in the eye because I'm very shy. But when it comes to my work, I know that this is my work, this is my profession, this is where I get paid. So when you talk about public speaking, it's not an easy thing to do, but it's something that when you do consistently, you find out that the more you do it, public speaking is not something that just happens to you overnight, but it's something that you just have to keep doing over and over again, and then you get better. I don't know if that makes sense. So you could start with maybe your group of friends. A friend is having a birthday party. Just offer to MC the event for her. Because of course it's your friend. So you could make a couple of mistakes here and there, but it's actually giving you the experience. Public speaking has to do with the more you do it, the better you get at it. That's one thing about public speaking. It's not a one-day thing, So you do it today, and you find out that when you start initially, like the first day I hosted something for a brand, when I initially started, I'm sure it was obvious that my voice that I wasn't comfortable. But I noticed that as I progressed, I was getting bolder. I was getting better at it. And that's the thing about public speaking. The more you do it, the better you get. The more you do it, the better you get. And when you get used to something, it no longer becomes a big deal for you. So it's something they can now wake you up. Hey, you're speaking here tomorrow, and you're like, okay, let me just have the details of what I'm supposed to talk about. And then about public speaking again, how you can actually get confidence and boldness is being prepared. And how are you prepared? Like if you're supposed to give a lecture or you're supposed to be an MC for an event, you have to first of all know what the event is about. Like first of all, if they call you to MC an event for Malta Guinness, you first of all have to go and research the brand Malta Guinness, so that you don't come the day of the event and you're mumbling or you're confused. So if they tell you, oh, hello, Precious, we are from Zenith Bank, and Zenith Bank will be hosting a 10-year anniversary celebration, and we would love you to host it, to be the host or to MC the event for us. The first thing you do is to ask them, what is this 10-year anniversary about? What and what, are you going to be doing there? So when you find out all these details, you have to go back and, research about Zenith Bank, how long they've worked. This, even you can find out about the previous anniversaries they've done, and just be prepared for the show. You find out that when you're prepared for that show, when you're prepared for that event, you walk in there feeling like a superstar because nothing is going to catch you by surprise. But if you do not even prepare, if you do not go to research about the brand you're about to MC their event, you are setting yourself up for failure. But if you've researched and to an extent you fully know the brand you're working with, what they are about, you just pick up the mic and then you can first of all talk about the brand, and that actually goes to tell the brand that hired you that you invested your time to find out about them, and they'll be pleased, and next time they'll call you. So you have to actually invest your time in finding out about the brand that is hiring you, what they do, what they expect of you, rehearse it, get used to it. You can even tell a friend or your family, or sit your family down, let them be like your spectators, and then carry the paper and read it in front of them. That will give you confidence. So let your family, let your friends be your spectators, let them be the ones to watch you while you rehearse these things. So like I said, public speaking has to do with the more you do it, the bolder you become, the better you become at it. And most importantly, before every public speaking, make sure you have rehearsed what you're supposed to speak about, what the event is about, and that way you find out that you're good to go. You can easily just always, and then you can easily just maneuver whatever it is because you already have an idea of what that brand is about and what the event your MC is about. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did, Ma. Thank you so much.
You're
In the absence
welcome.
of any questions, we can continue with the lecture, Ma.
Okay, so now I just want to, go on and just tell you how to, get into this broadcasting and journalism industry. Maybe if you've been finding it hard, I think the easiest thing is to take you could opt to do things the way I did. That's by volunteering. Like I told you, people like cheap labor, people like free things. So if you cannot get a company to hire you immediately, why don't you just say, okay, let me volunteer. Let me do internship. Let me learn, and trust me, it's easier to get it if you're volunteering and willing to work for free at first. It's easier. So that's how you get in. And when you get in, you know that this is actually why I'm taking this job without pay, because I want to learn. So make sure if they eventually give you the opportunity, make sure you're learning, make sure you're being serious about it, because truth is, no matter what, people always know when you're serious. People always know when you're working and when you're pretending. So when you eventually get in, make sure that all of that sacrifice, you're making it count. Get in early, read, research, do your best. If you have, and most importantly, you can also still have a role model in the industry, because your role model actually is always good to have a role model, because especially a good role model that you can see has actually conquered the industry you're hoping to get into. If you have a role model that is successful at something, you model your own career after that person, telling yourself, oh, I want to be like this person. I want to surpass this person. And then you can actually go read up on the person, or if you even have the opportunity of meeting the person one-on-one, you can ask them to mentor you. Some people will gladly mentor you, so that's actually a way to start. Be close to your role models if you can, if it's possible, have them mentor you, and if they mentor you, some of them can actually also put you on the right path. Some of them can actually even put you on, depends on the kind of role model you meet. So most of them will put you on, and the rest of them. But the most important thing is when you get on, make sure you're serious-minded, make sure you're doing the right thing. So, and then when you now get into this broadcasting and journalism thing, It is important, like I said, that you know your listeners, you know, whether you're in health, whether you're in politics, entertainment, food, sports, agriculture. There are so many, you know, aspects of this journalism and broadcasting. So wherever you are, know who your listeners are, relate with them, have a connection. Like me, I know my sports followers. I know, you know, we're always communicating on social media, Twitter. I follow them back, they follow me. We have our banters even off air and stuff like that. They're always calling in on my shows. It's a followership thing. So know your listeners, relate with them, have a connection, you know, because as a broadcaster, you need to have a connection with the people who listen to you. You're not just coming to rant or talk. You're actually connecting to people who are listening to you. And you know, the thing about radio is that, I'm giving you an example. I think radio is more difficult than TV. Because with TV, you know, there's something about when you're looking at something, you can see something. So you can actually, you know, it can keep your interest. But radio is that you're not seeing anything. You're depending totally on what you're hearing to keep you interested. I don't know if that makes sense. So if you're going to be working on radio, it's a bit difficult because you have to have that magnetic voice, that energizing voice to keep people interested and attracted to what you're saying for a long time. Because once you are not able to connect, people tune off. And most times your listeners that tune off might not tune back in. What they do is that they look for another station or another dial that is saying something they can relate to. And that's how you lose a listener. So on radio is difficult because you need to be very good with communication, with your voice, to keep your audience attracted and interested in listening to you all through. Because one bad move, one wrong move, they lose interest. And once they lose interest, there are so many radio stations. All they need to just do is to dial, dial, dial. And when they find another one, they're out, they're off. So you just have to, like I said, know your listeners, relate with them, have a connection with them. And that way you find out that you now have these followers that when it's time for your show, they never forget. Oh, they are all tuned in to listen to you because you have a connection with them. You say what they want to hear and you say it the way they want to hear it, and they can actually connect and relate with you. Am I clear enough on that, or do you want to ask any question regarding what I just said?
Ma, you're clear. We got you. We got you. Loud and
All right. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is be in charge. You know, like when you have, as a journalist, you know, every journalist, they have their own show, maybe on TV or radio, or if you're going to be if you're going to be into print journalism, you're a writer, make sure you're in charge. You know, your voice is all you have. As a journalist, your voice is what you have, and make sure you use that voice very well. And if you're in print media, your pen is what you have. Make sure you're writing the right things. Make sure you're in charge of your story. Make sure you're putting out the right story. So whatever it is, be in charge. Do you understand? Is your narrative. Like I said earlier, what actually distinguishes you as a journalist is the way you say your own story. You know, like 3 people can watch a movie, 3 people can watch an incident happen, and you give them all a biro to narrate that incident, or you tell them to come on TV or radio to narrate that incident, and you find out that the 3 of them will give you 3 different perspectives. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So that's the thing about human beings. We are totally different. The way we perceive things, the way we analyze things, you know, like 3 different people watched the same movie, watch the same incident happen, and then you give them biro and paper and tell them, okay, in your own words, narrate this story or this, and they'll give you 3 totally different versions. And that is okay, because that means we all have a perspective. So be in charge, you know, say things from your own perspective. And, you know, some people I am not a very controversial journalist. Some people like to be controversial. It works for them, but I'm not in for being controversial. I'm just in for being in charge of my story, saying things in my own perspective, the way I see it, and, you know, try to avoid controversies, you know, the best way I can, because I do not like controversy. So just be in charge of your story. Your voice is what you have. Your pen is what you have. Be energetic and all that. And then another thing, be yourself. You know, that's one thing everybody will always tell you, but it works. Be yourself. Do not try to be like anybody else. You can have role models and still be yourself. You know, when I say be yourself, it means you don't have to speak like a particular person. You know, some people always think that being a good broadcaster, you have to speak through your nose. It doesn't work like that. You know, be yourself, speak the way you're comfortable in, you know, say the things that makes you comfortable, you know, write things that you know you can comfortably write. Like, just be yourself. You don't have to try to imitate someone's way of doing things or someone's way of saying things. Just carve a niche for yourself. Just have your own, you know, thing going. And that is the thing people are going to know you for. That is the thing that maybe when they'll say, oh, that person that does this, oh, it's this one. There's nobody else that does this but this person. So just carve a niche for yourself and be yourself. Don't try to, you know, model your own journalism after somebody. Like I said, it's okay to have role models, but it's also okay to be yourself. Don't try to imitate the way another broadcaster talks or the way they present, their presenting styles. Look for your own. Be you, be original. There's nobody else like you. I give you an example. Years ago, I don't know if you guys know about Brilla FM. They are still operating. And their style of presenting in sports is that they like to talk fast. Hey, welcome to this is sports. Some people love that way of presenting. Some people loved it because it was fast, the pace was fast, it was energetic. People liked it. And that was their own way of presenting sports. It worked, people loved it. But it doesn't mean, you know, and the funny thing is that so many other sports journalists try to copy it and start to sound like Brilla FM people. But I'm just trying to tell you that it's okay to do your own thing. You necessarily don't have to do it the way another person is doing it, because in as much as there are people that liked that style, there are also people that didn't like it because according to them, it's too crazy, it's too lousy, it's too noisy. Something that some other people are saying, oh, they love. Some other people are saying, it's too lousy and it's too noisy. We can't even hear what they are saying. So you see, it's different. You always have your own audience. You always have your own crowd. So just find what works for you and do it. You don't have to do it the way another person is doing it. Now, let me round up with this because I think I've spoken for almost an hour. So I'm going to round up with this, yeah? In broadcasting, try and fill a void. Find a missing link and fill a void. It's not just even in broadcasting, in life generally. What will give you the edge, you know, over others is if you're filling a void, you are doing something that nobody else has done. You might be like, what is it that nobody else has done? Everybody has done something, yes. But you could actually have, you know, get up and do something that is unique to you, something that is like your pet project. I give you an example. If you're going to be into maybe journalism or broadcasting for agriculture, and you have a show on TV or radio, maybe for agriculture, you know, you're always telling people about farm products and this, that. You can be inviting farmers to your show, you know, maybe you do give away once in a while, you find sponsors and all that. You can actually have a project that evolves around agriculture, you know, find something, you know, fill a void, fill a missing link. There has to be something that you could actually do in that. Maybe you will not have to have maybe drawing up a schedule or finding a way to create a farmers association, which is created by you or something. where farmers all over Nigeria or the states where you're doing the agricultural broadcasting or agricultural events or show, come together to discuss the problems that agriculture is facing in Nigeria, find a way around it. That way, as a broadcaster, you're not just a broadcaster, but you're doing something for your community. Because as a broadcaster, you have a platform. You have a very big platform. And when you talk, people want to listen because they know you know what you're talking about. And then you can easily also find sponsors because you have airtime on radio or TV. So feel a void, feel a missing link. Like me, I am into sports. So one thing I normally do is to go to the national stadium, find a way to talk to all these young girls who actually are inspired to do one sport or the other, football, basketball, track and field, speak to them, bring them to my show once in a while to talk about themselves. Because truth is that when you talk sports, the female sport is generally not as visible as the male sports. The male sport is actually the most dominant, most seen, unlike the female. So the females are just beginning to find their feet when it comes to sports. So that way, I'm just trying to use my platform. Sorry about the noise. So I'm just trying to use my platform to bring awareness and visibility to female sports, female football in Nigeria. You see what I'm saying? I already have that platform as a female sports journalist. So I now ask myself, what else can I do for the community? What else can I do, apart from, you've already acquired that platform, what can you use this platform for? So now I just bring them to the show to talk about themselves, so that people can see them, people can hear them. Because when people are not seen or heard, they don't feel relevant. So I'm just using my platform to do something, something good for my immediate environment, for the society. And that is why I'm saying feel a void, feel a missing link. Find something to do that makes you, what's the word? Will I say replaceable? Not really replaceable, but something that will make you even more than a broadcaster. Because broadcasting gives you a platform, but what are you using that platform for? What else are you doing for your immediate environment? What else are you, bringing, in a way to further develop the society, apart from you just being, because truth is that you are more than you think you are. So when you've already acquired that platform, that popularity or something, you have to do more. You don't just stick to, okay, I'm a presenter now. No, you have to fill a void. You need to feel, have like a pet project or something that you do, so that way you find out that after much years, even when you've retired, you're leaving a legacy that will even outlive you, a legacy that is even going to be bigger than you and bigger than your career. So that's just what I mean by filling a void and feeling a missing link. It's not a one-day thing. It's just a step-by-step. So you just have to ask yourself, what else can I bring to this table? What else can I do, with this platform that I have as a media person, as a journalist, and as a broadcaster? So that's where I'll end my lecture for today. So I'm waiting for your questions before I sign out.
Wow, thank you so much. Guys, please, if you have any questions, please raise your hand so I can give you the audience. Okay, Mr. Asha, please ask your question.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
I don't really have much question to ask, but
Okay.
I want to still ask, if your child wake up today and wants to be a journalist, what is that one thing, maybe in a second, what would that
Sorry, could you ask the question again? What is that one thing though?
I was trying to ask if your child today wants to be a journalist and already you are into the system,
Yeah.
what would that be one thing, that particular thing that you advise your child to follow?
Okay, so if my child wakes up and tells me, oh, mom, I want to be a journalist. So first of all, I'll find out what field of journalism they hope to explore. You know, there are so many fields in journalism. Okay. So when they do that, actually is going to be, what's the word now? I think I'll make it easier for them by letting them know what to do early and the places to concentrate. If you say, oh, I want to be an investigative journalist, you know, because I'm already in this field, I know people that are already prospering and flourishing in that field that I could easily just send them to do internship. I really believe in volunteering and internship, maybe because it helped me. So, and it's the fastest way to learn. Volunteering and being an intern is the fastest way to learn, because that way people love volunteers. So if my child wakes up and says, I want to be, I'm just going to send them off to volunteer or intern under somebody that I know that is already successful in this field, because I believe that that's the easiest way to learn. And if it's in my own field, sports journalism, that they hope to continue, then I'll be the perfect role model for them, because it will just be easy to walk in my own shoes, because there are mistakes I've made. And that way, because I'm the one that they're modeling after, they will not be able to make such mistakes. They will just, have it easy. So I don't know if I answered your question the way you wanted it to be answered.
Not really. I've already heard the other side of the story you said already. I am actually looking at this one important thing that you will advise your child that, look, you need to do this particular thing, just hit it straight. You just need to do this particular thing so that the child can, just pick it from there. Just pick something out of you. There's something already that you've gone through, you've passed through, just tell this child straight. That is all. I want to learn something from that, ma. Sorry.
Mr.
Okay.
Asha, sorry. Okay. Sorry, ma, please excuse. Mr. Asha, please script your question for the lecturer. Please script down your question and don't beat around the bush.
Okay, I think hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes,
okay, for Asha, I think you're asking, what's that one advice I'll just give my child that wants to go into journalism? And like I told you, there are so many, there's no one way to this journalism, because, I listed a lot of things you should have as a good broadcaster and journal communication, blah, blah, blah. But like I told you, that one thing I would do is to hand them over to an already successful person in their own field. That is why.
Sorry.
Hello.
Ma, we can
it's okay. It's okay. We can hear you. It's okay, ma. Thank you.
Yeah. So, like, there's no one advice of, be yourself. That one, I think that's a be yourself, be in charge, blah, blah, blah. But the most important thing is to hand them over to someone that will groom them, someone that is already successful in whatever field that they want to, go in, as in that field, that path, that career path they want to go into, someone that is already successful in it, so that they can just mirror their path in that person's own, career. And I believe that's the easiest thing to do. Volunteer, intern under someone who has already been successful. That's just my own believe and way to make these things faster.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Itari, thank God. Please ask a question.
All right. My question goes thus.
Okay.
How, because you said something about accent, so that was what drew my attention.
Okay.
Is there any limiting factor to one's accent concerning journalism? Thank you.
Well, I told you that when you want to be a journalist or a broadcaster or communicate, there are so many languages you could use. So if you cannot speak good English, you cannot expect, a BBC to hire you. That would not make sense at all, because you know that the audience that listen to BBC are people that hear English and understand good English. So if you cannot communicate in good English, you actually would not expect to go and put your CV with BBC or any big news organization where their followers are purely English people. So that's why, yes, there is limitation, but if you know you can't speak English and it's your native language you can speak, they have BBC Igbo, they have BBC Hausa, they have BBC Yoruba. I don't know if have you ever heard of it before?
Yes, I have. Even
Exactly.
BBC Pidgin. Yeah.
Exactly. So you see, there is actually no limitation, but don't go to where you cannot actually, you can't communicate well in Pidgin. You don't know how to speak Pidgin. And then you're trying to go and submit your CV with BBC Pidgin. It won't work. So you have to find where you communicate best in. Whether if it's Igbo, then it can go towards, working in the Eastern states, their radio station or TV station, they speak Igbo there. So that works perfectly for you. If it's Yoruba, if it's outside, the most important thing is that when you communicate, the audience. So at the end of the day, the most important thing is your audience. When you communicate, your audience, they hear you. BBC Swahili, BBC what. Make sure you know who your audience are. So, and then for those that speak accents, you can work for BTFM, you can work for those radio stations that their audience are, they are jebos that hear, how you doing? That kind of English. So there's something for everybody. Just find your audience, find your own niche, but don't go looking for a job, when your English is not your thing, because it really does not make sense. So find your own, where you can communicate better in and just pitch your tent there. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Mike Cookie, I saw your hand.
Okay, good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
My name is Mike Cookie. Okay, so I want to ask a question from what you highlighted, being in charge. So
Okay.
I try to be in charge and tell the story from your angle.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when your perspective or your narrative is contradictory? More like, how do you handle such situation?
Okay. When I started talking, I talked about being controversial. There are so many journalists that thrive at controversy. I don't know if you've seen such people before.
Yes, ma'am, there are quite a few. I know.
Of course, they are very controversial. Kemi Olunu, or what's her name? I don't even remember her surname. They just thrive on all that, saying contradictory things, saying things that, rouse everybody up because they want attention and the rest of them. So when I say be in charge, yeah, to tell a story as a journalist, I think I missed the part where I did not mention and make sure you're saying the truth. Make sure what you're narrating is the truth. So if you're very sure that what you're putting out there is the truth, it's not been embellished because you collected bribe from anybody, because sometimes journalists collect money to write what is not. I don't know if is something you can actually, agree with. So when I say be in charge, it means do not let anybody influence you to writing something that is not true, something that something that you cannot even like boldly stand and say, I witnessed this and it's true. So be in charge means let your story be your story, let your voice be your voice. Don't let anybody, bribe you or shake you, or let a politician or whoever it is or anybody shake you into retracting your story or writing the wrong thing just because you don't want to step on someone's toes. So when I say be in charge of your story, it means make sure what you're writing is something you can stand for, something you're sure of, something that is the truth. So that's actually what I mean by being in charge and writing from your perspective, something you know that even if they put a gun to your head, you are sure you witnessed this thing and you're sure this is the truth. So there's no embellishing it because you've collected some brown envelope or something like that. So that is what I mean by being in charge of your story. Don't let anybody make you contradict your words. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Absolutely, man. It's quite understood. Just a quick follow-up question to it. Okay. I want you to share with us if there is what's been your most challenging moment in course of doing your job?
Okay, there are quite a few. Okay, I think the first time, this was when I just started my career as a sports journalist. I think, the thing about being a sports journalist, especially a football journalist, is that you work with stats, you work with informations, and you always need to know your stats as a footballer, because even I run commentary sometimes. So I think in the course of doing my job, I made a mistake with the stats. Man, the phones were buzzing, people were tweeting, oh, it's a lie. You don't know what you're talking about. This, that. That day, I felt that the ground should open up and swallow me. But those are one of the many lessons you learn as a journalist. And those are the things that make you better. Because that incident actually meant that I never went on air without actually reading and getting it right, so that I will never make mistake on air, and so that nobody will call me and question what I'm saying, because I am sure of what I'm saying. So that day, I will never forget, I made a mistake on air by putting the wrong stats, and people almost had my head. And of course, they are right. As a journalist, people trust you to tell them what the real thing is. If you're coming to say something that is not, anything, if they want to have your head, they're right. I didn't want to feel pity for myself, because I actually brought it upon myself. I should have known better to get your stats right, to get your facts right. As a journalist, you do not go on air or TV to mislead people with the wrong information. You're supposed to have the right information at all times. So that was one of my bad experiences. And after that day, I could tell you that I never made another mistake on air, because before I even went on air, I would comb, I would research, I would read up. Before I said anything, I was always 101% sure that this thing I'm saying is the fact, and there was no disputing it.
Wow. That was quite a hard one, man, to hear.
Very, very tough. You experience such things, but hey, it keeps you going.
Yeah. So did you put up an apology on that?
Yeah, of course I did. Of course I did. The next show, I had to, point out that, oh, what I said the other time was totally wrong, and I apologize for giving the wrong. I even put it out on my Twitter page and stuff like that. So, but hey, things will always things will boil up and it will blow over. But there are people that are even waiting for you to make mistakes, and that's okay. But one thing is owning up to making a mistake and making sure that you don't repeat such again and you get better from there. There's no shame in making mistakes.
Perfect. Thank you so very much, man.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I don't think anyone has raised their hands. Please, guys, if you want to ask a question, please raise your hand so that I can call.
I'm listening.
Okay, Mr. Itari, thank God. Please ask your question.
Okay. I will beg my class rep to allow me to do a little narration, although it's not allowed, but I will beg her to permit me on this.
Okay.
All right. Mine is concerning the trait of a good journalist, which is said be a good communicator. Right, as we know, in the as radio, during communication, your audience cannot really picture the image. So
Yeah.
there have to be a perfect relationship between you and your audience so that they can really understand your communication.
Yeah.
I listened to a radio show, a sports radio show, which a caller was confused about Grand Slam, and she asked the sports anchor, please, can you explain this in Grand Slam for me so that I can understand it? What do you mean by Tour de France? What do you mean by, US Open? I don't really understand it. How can you, And I was so surprised that the journalist now said, if you can use football and say that it is their own type of World Cup. When you say US Open, when you say Paris Open, Tour de France, it's their own kind of World Cup. And even me that have understanding about tennis, I was so confused. And I believe that the caller also will be confused. So sometimes in radio, it is very difficult to match pictures with words. So in this case, how do you really match pictures with words concerning your listeners? Thank you.
Okay. This is actually very simple. Obviously, the presenter had no idea what she was talking about, because if she had an idea, she would have explained to her caller what a Grand Slam actually meant, but she didn't have. And that's why I said you have to have knowledge of what you're saying, because you can't give what you don't have. You can only give what you have. You can't explain or communicate to people if you don't even know what you're talking about. So first of all, you need to know what you're saying. You need to be convinced about it. You need to know it very well before you're able to pass the knowledge to someone else. But if you don't know it, there's no way I can teach you what I don't know. It's only what I know that I can translate to you, that I can communicate to you. So it's obvious that the OAP or the presenter didn't know what, they didn't know what the caller was asking. Because if you come in to ask me about a Grand Slam, I can tell you that Grand Slam are like 4 major tournaments in tennis. They have the Australian Open, the US Open, the French Open, and the rest of. So those are like the 4. Those are the 4 major tournaments in tennis. Even though they have Indian Wells, clay, and the rest of them, but those are like the 4 major tournaments in tennis. They have other ones, like if you come to EPL now, they have the Premier League, which is the standard title that you win when everybody competes against each other. Then they also have the FA Cup, the Carling Cup. FA Cup is the oldest competition. So only the presenter had an idea and explained better, there's actually nothing to be confused about. But like I said, you can only explain what you know. You can only explain what you know. Hello?
Ma, please carry on.
Yeah, you can only explain what you know. What you don't know it. There's nothing you can do about it. So as a presenter, like I said, before you go on air or anything, you have to make sure that the knowledge you're trying to pass across, you've already...
Mr. Ashafra, please turn off your mic.
So before you go on air and try to pass across any message or communicate, make sure that you've already dissected whatever thing you're trying to pass across. Just make sure you've read it, you understand it, because the only way you can teach someone else is if you understand it. So don't just go on and open your mic and start to talk. Make sure you know what you're talking about. Make sure 100% you understand it, because that's the only way you can go on to relate it to somebody else without confusing them or, making it complicated for them to understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Olisa, please ask your question.
Good day, Ma.
Yeah, good day.
My name is Abiazim Olisa, and I want to first of all say I've enjoyed your lecture, very, very wonderful lecture.
Thank
And
you.
I want to ask a very, very sensitive question.
Okay.
Concerning the female reporter. Okay. Let's use you for an example. You're a very, very beautiful lady, and I want to ask: has there been a time in your career when you missed an opportunity, or you were offered an opportunity, but there had to be that that clause, like you have to see the boss, or I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. You have to see the boss. You have to, yes. So has there been a time in your career, and yeah, as a female, a young female broadcaster or journalist, when she comes in that situation, she's in that situation, what do you advise her to do?
Okay, first of all, yeah, of course, if you're female and you're beautiful, it's not even just in the broadcast or journalism industry, whether it's the banking sector, oil and gas, whatever sector. Of course, you come across these things. Some people want to, sleep with you or have a relationship with you before they can give you any sort of, hand or help you progress in your career. I don't want to say it's normal, because it's not like it's the right thing that should happen, but it's like a norm. You understand? So, but the thing is, yes, of course, there are cases where there are sometimes I would have loved to interview like the big fishes, the big bosses when football is concerned in Nigeria. But I actually just opt out because, even from the side comments, and most of them, you come for interview and they leave the interview and start talking about, oh, you're very beautiful. And when you start to say that, it's obvious that you're not interested in what I have to offer as a sports journalist. You're not interested in my career. What you're interested is some other thing. And I is not what I'm about, so I'm not judging anyone. People are different. We all have our career path. We all have things we believe in. We all have things we wish to do. So most times when I schedule to have those kind of interviews, or, interviews that I know could, take my career forward, or, people that that if you meet them, is actually going to advance your career. But at the end of the day, you already know that these people are really not interested in the professional aspect of your life. They want something else. So what I just do is that I don't even bother to make the arrangement for such interviews or meet those people. The only time I just meet them is in a general space where sports journalists are gathered and everybody is asking questions and I can ask my own questions. But when it comes to maybe those one-on-one interviews or going to meet them for favors and all that, you already know what the answer will be. So I don't even bother. So now my advice to a young journalist that are upcoming in whatever industry, whether sports or anything is, like I said, make sure you are good at what you do. Make sure you're very good. Like, it's difficult as to be a woman in this my industry, because you have to work as twice as a man to convince people that you are good at what you do, and it's not just the fine face. So be good at what you do, so that at every point in time, it will be based on merit. Do you understand? At every point in time, when people hear that, oh, I give you an example. I've done some online content for Bet Niger, hosted some not Bet Niger, Naira Bet. I have some YouTube series for Naira Bet where I was paid per episode. And sometimes it's really not about the money they pay you in your workplace. It's about all of those gigs you get outside. And those gigs are gotten based on your networking and your connect. So I've had those kind of gigs. I've had, MC events, or, being a public speaker somewhere or something. So make sure you're so good at this, your job, that people cannot ignore you. And even when you do get some things, nobody will come out and say, I beg that one. This, no, because when they see you, they can attest to the fact that this one knows what she's doing. This one knows what she's saying. This one knows her job. Like in my department, I'm the only female in the midst of 7 guys at Megalectrics. But for every time I do, because we do sports shows, and then weekend we have my company has the sole rights of EPL broadcast. So every weekend we do the Premier League broadcast. Like today now, there's a game between Manchester United and Liverpool. So you could wake me up and I give you stats and tell you everything, and you know, this one is not just a fine face. She knows what she's talking about. So my colleagues, you always tell you, like, whenever we schedule for EPL, we work 3-3 on Saturday or 3 on Sunday. Everybody wants me to be on it because callers tend to call in, oh, where's Amaka? She didn't come today. Da, da, da. And it's not just because it's Amaka, but because she knows what she's saying. So at the end of the day, make sure you build your career around merits, around being so good at what you do that nobody can ignore you. So at some point, you really don't necessarily have to have any sort of relationship with anybody, but they will still call you because you are good at what you do, because they cannot ignore you. Even when you're not giving into whatever sort of relationship, they will still offer you the job. Why? Because you're very good, and because you're the face that people want to see in that job, because you know what you're doing. So my advice, make sure that no matter what you do, you are good at it, so that people cannot just push you aside or shank you aside. Nah, they can't do that, because when you become very good, people will look for you. You don't necessarily have to do anything. So that's it.
Thank you, Ma. Can I ask another question? It's totally different.
Go on.
Okay, yes. So in former seasons of this Next Media Star, we were taught how to make our short-term goals and our long-term goals. And
sorry, how to make what?
Your short-term goals and long-term goals, your goals in your career. So one of my long-term goals is to be at TalkSport in my 20s, maybe late 20s or thereabout, to be at TalkSport. So what do you advise me to do in order to achieve that set goal?
Okay, it's good to set goals. It's good to, because when you set goals, it actually creates like a path for you to know how to make your plans. So it's good to set goals. I'm all for setting goals. So I'm going to ask you, first of all, what effort have you made to start? Because you want to be in TalkSport, but you definitely have to start from somewhere. So what effort have you made? Where have you started from? Where are you now?
Okay, Ma. I'm currently 17. Under the guidance of, I've been under the guidance of guidance and mentorship of Sam Iweja for like 3 years. Direct guidance and mentorship for 3 years. I've been on air. I've been on air since after my secondary school. I've been having some cameos on Megalectrics, some stations at Megalectrics, and I've been just building from there. I have also I have foreign mentors, like there's John Anderson at TalkSport, Eric Ray, Dan Thomas, Matthew Kenyon. They write me, they text me, they advise me for like 2 years. I've been doing this for like 2 years. So I feel I'm going in the right direction, but I still want to add.
Okay, I think you're doing well. You already have a direct
to the next step.
Okay, like I said, I think you're doing well. You already have a direct mentor who is monitoring you closely. That's one. Two, at some point you have to step away from the shadow of your mentor, having your own sports show, doing your own thing. For all your mentors you've mentioned, follow them on social media, follow them closely, look at how they go about their job, what they do, and stuff like that. And if you want to be on TalkSport, you definitely know that at some point you need to move to the UK, because you have to be closer to where you want to be. So, but right now, I think you're doing well. So, then you just have to pace yourself and time yourself and tell yourself that, okay, after 3 months or 6 months, I do not want to be under Sammy's shadows anymore. I want to maybe have my own show. I want to maybe work in a radio station. Certification. Are you going to further your knowledge? Do you go on internet? What's the site again where you can go and learn courses? Coursera and the rest of them. Learn courses, equip yourself so that when that time comes, you're ready, But I think first of all, being under Sammy's mentorship is nice, but then pace yourself. How long more do you want to be under his mentorship? When do you plan to maybe have your own sports show, your own thing, not about your mentor anymore, about you? When will you start your own sports show? What radio station do you want to work for? Which radio station do you think is so good in sports that if you're in that radio station, you'll be noticed? And then you'll be so good at what you do. Can you also, for Talk Sports, volunteer to write columns for them or something, just find a way, that place you want to work, find a way to, have a direct contact with them or direct access to them. And like I said earlier, you have to move to the UK at some point if Talk Sports is really what you want to do. But as you're still in Nigeria now, pace yourself, have your own sports radio show. Look for a radio station you want to work with. If it's Megaletris, fine, because I think in Port Harcourt, Megaletris is one of the big radio stations. At some point, you might have to leave Port Harcourt. Lagos is for the big boys, for the big fishes. If you want to. I'm not saying Port Harcourt is not good, but we know that Lagos is actually where it's happening. So at some point, you might just have to tell yourself, okay, I think I want to move. I want to do this. I want to do that. So it's about pacing yourself and telling yourself, okay, I'm ready to move to this next step. I'm ready to do this now. I'm ready to do that now. And at every point you feel that you've achieved this and you need to move, make sure you're moving. Don't get stuck in one place. So that's just it.
Thank you so much, Ma.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Ma. We've learned so much this session. I don't think there's any more question at the moment. There's no more question. No one is raising their hands. So okay. I would want to just give a round of message. And then also, I would also want you to give us your social media handles, your Twitter accounts, your Instagram accounts, and all, so we can follow you. That would be very much appreciated, ma'am.
Okay, so on Instagram and Twitter, my handle is Chiamaka Okoli Didi. That's AMAKA OKOLI, then DD. That's double D. Chiamaka Okoli Didi. That's the same handle on Instagram and Twitter, so you could just follow me there.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, guys, it was nice talking to you. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I hope you all go on to flourish and whatever it is you want to become in life, I hope you get it. I hope you flourish. I hope you do so well and amazing in whatever career you choose for yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you.